Hello, my name is Kimmich, and my ecology presentation is on the Humphead wrasse, also known as the Napoleon fish. This presentation is going to cover the Humphead wrasse and all of its ecological characteristics. These are going to include the behavioral and physical adaptations, its life history traits, its mechanisms of dispersal, the population carrying capacity, the limiting factors, and the impact that the fish has on its environment. We'll go ahead and start discussing the physical adaptations of the fish. So as you can see from the picture, these fish have very large lips. This is largely due to their diet. So when we talk about the ecological impact later, you'll learn that they eat many poisonous creatures. One is a starfish, and essentially these lips protect them from the toxins that the starfish release. The second adaptation that they have is protogynous hermaphroditism. What this basically means is at some point in the fish's life cycle, the females can transition into males. Whether this is due to breeding necessity or other factors, it's a pretty cool trait. So the third thing is pharyngeal teeth. These fish have beak-like teeth, which allow them to crush the shells of crustaceans, mollusks, and other organisms and allow them to eat the insides. Another adaptation of the fish is jaw expansion. So these fish can expand their jaw um, and essentially eat larger organisms, such as starfish, without breaking them into bits. So the last adaptation I want to talk about is their specialized fins. So they actually use their fins for different things, which is actually common in a lot of fish. So they use their pectoral fins mostly for idle swimming and everyday life, and they'll use their dorsal fin to acquire boosts of speed when they need to escape from a predator or whenever needed. So now we'll discuss their behavioral adaptations. These fish are sightbound. They will stay in their reef pretty much their entire life, only moving slightly away from them to go to mating aggregations. They are very solitary, which means they do not like hanging out with their own species. You will rarely find more than 10 fish per reef of Humphead wrasse. And lastly, they are diurnal. So they actually sleep at night in caves or wherever they can find, and they are active during the day. Okay, so now we'll transition into speaking about their life history traits. So these fish will reach sexual maturity by ages 5 and 7, and at age 10 to 15, going back to the protogynous hermaphroditism, the females have the ability to transition to males. These fish reproduce through broadcast spawning, which is essentially when the males and females will release their gametes into the water and they will combine in the water. It's an external process. It does not happen within the fish. And they do this close to daily when they do mating aggregations. And the number of offspring that can arise from these aggregations can range from 10 fish to over 100. Moving on to their population dispersal, these fish are largely focused in the Indo-Pacific region, from the Indian Ocean to the west side of the Pacific Ocean. They are site-bound, so they do not migrate or anything like that. They are stuck in their coral reefs where they will live the rest of their life. They are solitary fish. Again, they do not move. Um, and as I said earlier, there are less than 10 wrasse per reef. So we'll talk a little bit about their population statistics now. So over the past few years, we've noticed a 50% decrease in the populations of these fish, which is a little alarming because their carrying capacity is not that high. with only 10 to 20 fish per reef, and they are not meeting these numbers. So this is mostly due to overfishing by humans, which we'll discuss later. This is not due to any abiotic limiting factors. This is entirely overfishing by humans. And we have not seen any growth over the past few years with these populations either. So moving into biotic barriers and limiting factors to their population, as I mentioned, overfishing is the #1 barrier to their population growth. Humans have been fishing this Humphead wrasse out of the waters for a while now, and it's a very valuable fish. So overfishing is going to continue, even with regulations in place. Illegal fishing is going to continue, and it's going to be hard to stop. Another biotic barrier are natural predators. So, for example, sharks. Now, these fish, like I said, live in reefs, so you're not going to have huge sharks attacking them. Um, so this is a rare occurrence, but again, it does happen. But the big takeaway from this slide is that humans are the main barrier to their population growth. So transitioning to abiotic barriers, these are related to the climate. So warming ocean temperatures, losses of coral reefs, these are all going to affect the Humphead wrasse. Pollution is obviously a big one. With the dirtier waters, Humphead wrasse can't function properly, just as other fish can't, and this can limit their population. So moving on to the economical impact of these fish, they're extremely valuable, and this is because they are a delicacy in Asia. They fetch around $220 per pound, and these fish can grow up to 400 pounds. So obviously, I mean, you're not going to use all of the fish for food, but if we were just to use this estimate, I mean, that's, as I have here, $88,000 per fish. I mean, that's a lot of money. So, as I said, overfishing and illegal fishing is going to be a continuous problem that we need to address. Now we'll talk about the ecological impact of these fish. They are very important to the health of coral reefs. As I mentioned earlier, with their diet, they eat a starfish. This is known as the crown of thorns starfish, which is infamous for causing damage to coral reefs. They're extremely poisonous, and they are damaging to their ecosystem. So the diet of the humphead wrasse includes this starfish and other toxic organisms, and essentially cleans up the coral reefs and allows them to flourish. So I now want to talk about management strategies on how we can keep the population of humphead wrasse increasing and away from the endangered list. So the first one I want to talk about is extensive fishing regulations. Now we already have regulations in place. However, I don't know how they're enforced. The pros of this are going to be it's going to allow the fish to regenerate their population naturally in their natural habitat. Um, and this is going to help other species in the coral reef benefit by eating organisms such as crown of thorns, keeping the coral reef healthy. Again, cons, it's unrealistic. So illegal fishing is going to continue to happen. It's not really something we can change without enforcing, on an hourly basis. Uh, the demand for this fish is going to increase because it's going to be harder to get to, and this is going to increase the price, and illegal fishing is going to increase because there's more incentive. Okay, the next management strategy I want to talk about is aquarium breeding. Now, this is more realistic, so we're going to be able to regenerate the population. However, this isn't going to be in the natural habitat. They're not going to benefit the coral reef. Sure, we'll save the population. However, the fish in the coral reef are not going to benefit from this. Um, Another pro is that awareness is going to be arisen. So these fish are in aquariums where people can see them and maybe learn a bit more about them and their situation. These fish are going to be protected. obviously you can't illegal fish in an aquarium. It's a little impossible. Uh, so the pros here are pretty solid. However, they are not going to be in their natural habitat. Moving on to the cons. So, um, as I said, the natural populations aren't benefited. The fish are going to live in captivity, which I know there's a lot of activists going against zoos and what they're doing. I haven't heard anything about the aquarium side of things, but again, it's probably not great for fish to live in captivity. And lastly, the coral reefs don't benefit. And as I can see, that's the entire purpose for these fish to be um, protected because they are a huge benefit to coral reefs. And the last management strategy I want to talk about kind of goes hand in hand with the previous one I just talked about, and that's raising awareness. So the biggest thing that's going to help is raising awareness about these fish, teaching people about them and their situation. The more people that are aware, the more action can be taken. Um, the only downside to this is it's completely hypothetical. I mean, we can talk all day, but if no action is taken, then no foreseeable results are going to arise. Um, and that's the main issue with this. Again, raising awareness is the big thing that we need to do. The previous one, aquarium breeding, will help with this as well. However, most people go to aquariums just to kind of look at pretty fish. So uh, I think by solely focusing on raising awareness, it'll help much more. Okay, so that concludes my presentation on the Humphead wrasse. Some key takeaways here are that the Humphead wrasse is endangered largely because of humans. So there are no natural predators or any other biotic factors that are hindering the population of this other than us. Our overfishing and illegal fishing are what's causing this fish to dwindle in population size. Um, and as such, this is our problem that we created and we need to address and fix it. Um, Another takeaway is that these fish aren't just useless animals that we are trying to save because it's the right thing to do. They are extremely important to the health of coral reefs. By eating those toxic organisms, they're allowing coral reefs to flourish, and as such, they are immensely important.